Now, about an hour or so ago, we did have some massive breaking news in the world of mixed martial arts. Yeah. And so you have heard us talk a little bit about this antitrust lawsuit that was on the horizon, and had been, in the works for about a decade. The likes of Cajun Johnson, Kung Lee, a whole bunch of fighters were a part of it. John Fitch, Kingsbury, Couture, et cetera, et cetera. It was supposed to start right after. It was supposed to kick off in earnest right after UFC 300, but we did get some breaking news. Several people have reported this. John Nash, who is a journalist who focuses on the business side of things, has done a phenomenal job of keeping us up to date with his reporting. He was the first one that I saw report this massive update. And so I'm going to read this off of MMAfighting.com, written by Damon Martin, because I will be honest, I'm not the smartest person in the world, and certainly when it comes to legal matters, not the smartest person in the world. We are efforting to get an expert on the program. Perhaps this is an update that I'm seeing here. It's on short notice, but let me read and try to explain what I know regarding this massive update. And I'm reading this off the MMA Fighting article. The UFC has reached a settlement agreement for a pair of antitrust lawsuits that will no longer go to trial. On Wednesday, TKO Group Holdings, the parent company to the UFC, filed a disclosure with the Securities and Exchange Commission, revealing that the organization had settled with the aggrieved parties in two separate lawsuits, with the company agreeing to pay out $335 million. The settlement was reached this past Wednesday, according to the filing. The settlement issued to the SEC is listed below. On March 13, 2024, TKO reached an agreement to settle all claims asserted in both class action lawsuits, the Kung Lee and Cajun Johnson lawsuits, for an agreed amount of $335 million payable by the company and its subsidiaries in installments over an agreed upon period of time. The terms will be memorialized in a long-form agreement and then submitted to the court for approval. The company anticipates that the settlement amount will be deductible for tax purposes. That, I think, is very significant, and I'll explain why in a moment. I'll continue to read. The plaintiffs in the first class action lawsuit, Lee et al. Versus Zuffa, numbered about 1,200 fighters. Experts estimated potential damages they suffered to be between $894 million and $1.6 billion, though a trial would have determined the final number. The settlement comes after Judge Richard Boulware issued an order on Wednesday delaying the start of the upcoming trial, which was scheduled to begin on April 15th. Boulware made it clear in a previous hearing that he would not postpone the start date again unless the parties involved in the case reached a resolution. The plaintiffs in the case, from two separate lawsuits led by fighters such as Kung Lee, Nate Quarry, and Cajun Johnson, were in private mediation with the UFC about a potential resolution. Now, it's confirmed that the two sides reached a settlement that will prevent the antitrust lawsuit from ever going to trial. The Mixed Martial Arts Fighters Association, fronted by Rob Macy, one of the attorneys representing the fighters in the Lee et al. Versus Zuffa case, released a brief statement on the settlement. We are pleased with the settlement and will disclose more when we file with the court in 45 to 60 days. We love all of these guys. So, Rob was the individual I was trying to get on the show. I don't think that's going to happen on such short notice, but there's the statement from the leader of the MMAFA. We continue with the article because I think this is all very important and fascinating. The initial antitrust lawsuit was filed all the way back in 2014 with the fighters alleging UFC engaged in, quote, in a scheme to acquire and maintain monopsony power in the market for elite professional MMA fighters' services. The fighters claimed UFC achieved that goal through three key elements: exclusive contracts, coercion, and acquisitions that eliminated potential competitors. TKO Group Holdings previously addressed the lawsuit as the trial date grew closer, while also acknowledging that talks continued about a potential resolution. This is from Andrew Schleimer, who's the TKO chief financial officer. Quote, as we've always said, and this is our consistent message since we started talking about this case publicly, we believe strongly that the facts and the law are on our side, and we look forward in terms of timing to make our arguments to a jury at trial. Quote, but as is typical in a case like this, we've been engaged in private mediation simultaneously with our trial preparation. That's what we're prepared to comment on at this time, end quote. Finally, with a settlement reached, Judge Boulware will need to sign off on the settlement agreement. If confirmed, there'll be no trial and both the antitrust lawsuits will close out. So that means that it appears as though this is coming to an end. And as Damon wrote in this great article, this is a story that dates back to 2014. Now, initially, when I heard the numbers that they were trying to, in terms of a dollar amount to earn from all of this, was much higher than 335. I'll be honest, when I first saw this news come out, I was a little bit underwhelmed by that number. Nevertheless, that is going to be dispersed and divided among the fighters that fall under the umbrella of the time period that this class action lawsuit is overseeing, and it's not like a perfect pie. It's based on a multitude of factors. And again, I don't feel like I'm the smartest person in the room to explain that, but this is what was explained to me. What is also very significant is, as I noted above, this will be tax deductible for TKO. That's tremendous. Also, it does not appear, based on what we are seeing thus far, that this will change, and maybe I will prove to be wrong, and we'll learn more as they noted in the MMA FA statement in the next 45 to 60 days. We'll learn more, but it does not appear as of now, based on the conversations that I've had, that the business practices of the UFC are going to change as a result. That, in addition to what the fighters were going to earn, that was a major part of this, right? They wanted to change the business practices. They wanted the fighters to have more rights, perhaps not be classified as essentially employees, they're classified as independent contractors, but they're treated as employees. The freedom to do X, Y, and Z, the rankings, the titles, all that stuff. It doesn't appear, at least as of right now, that any of this is happening. And who am I to say that's disappointing, that's not disappointing? But that seemed to be a big thing that they were fighting for. Now, this doesn't necessarily kill the Muhammad Ali Act, but I will tell you something that will extinguish it if, and this is not me having any sort of political commentary on the United States, these are just the facts. If Donald Trump becomes president once again of the United States, you can pretty much kiss goodbye any chance of the Muhammad Ali Act becoming a thing in the next 4 or 5 years. It's just going to, given his relationship with Dana White and the brass, it's just not going to happen. The same reason it was never a thing in the 4 years that he was president. So there's a lot to digest here. There's a lot to dissect. Obviously, $335 million is nothing to sneeze at. That is significant and good on them for, fighting for what they believe in. I'm curious. I would love to know why they settled on that number. I would love to know why they settled, why they got this far and didn't try to get it, to a trial and see how much you can actually win if you feel so strongly in your case. And I would love to know if, and if not, why it appears to be just about the money and not about the actual business practices, which seem to be a big thing that they were fighting for. So a fascinating story, a massive story, hearing from a lot of people, hearing from a lot of fighters, hearing from a lot of people that, want to weigh in on this, some who can on the record, some who can't on the record, who have to be off there. There's a lot going on, but there's a guy named John Nash and Eric McGracken and a bunch of people on Twitter who are covering this very well. And I think this is a super important story and a super important moment in the history of the sport. I just don't know, again, totally uneducated, not a smart guy, just don't know if it's as big as was hoped for and expected by the fighters involved at the very beginning. Maybe they felt, goes to trial, they're not going to get anything. That's a possibility. Maybe they took what they can get. I don't know, but would love one day to hear from the TKO side of things. and also, of course, from the fighters side of things, you know, how we ended up here. So more on that to come, I'm sure. And like I said, and gentlemen, if Connor or Rick, if any of you see anything pop up on Twitter while we're doing the show, obviously I'm not monitoring it as much when we are doing the show. Let me know. But I feel like that 335, the 335 number is surprising to me. But again, what do I know? Oh, here's Kevin Iole with a statement from the UFC on cue. Quote, "We are pleased to have reached an agreement to settle all claims asserted in both the Lee and Johnson class action lawsuits, bringing litigation to a close and benefiting all parties. The final terms of the settlement will be submitted to the court of approval." So there you have it in that regard. And yeah, I think that's it for now. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it very much. Hey, if you like this video, give us the old thumbs up. Subscribe as well. You could get many more of these videos on the channel, so please do that. We would love you forever if you did so.